Welcome to Beyond Business Barriers, powered by insights, driven by strategy, and yes, assisted by AI. I'm your host, Roy MacEwen, and today's episode is part of a special series where we sit down with industry leaders to dig into what's working, what's not, and what the future holds. I am truly excited today to have Bryan joining me. Bryan, glad to have you here. Let's kick things off with a quick intro. Can you tell us who you are and where our listeners can find you online?
Sure. My name is Bryan Partee, which is a great last name because I tell everybody Party. I joke about that, and I was like, "Hey, my son's name is Raymond Jean, so it's Ray Jean Party." But anyway, my name is Bryan Partee. I was a 20-year CEO for the Boys and Girls Club, two different local clubs. I now run the nonprofit marketplace, which you can get to me at nonprofitmarketplace.org. And what I do is they train you very well in Boys and Girls Club. So I'm actually a nonprofit consultant. I help write grants for nonprofits because a lot of times people jump in with 2 feet with their heart and not always with their brain to know how to run a business too, because you're a business first. And I'm on all the socials. So as Nonprofit Marketplace or Bryan Partee.
Perfect. I found it easy enough, so I'm sure our listeners, they'll be able to find you really quick. So how our podcast is going to go today, we'll start off with your background, a little bit of background you already gave us. We'll get you go a little deeper.
Yep.
You're seeing in, let's say and some of the shifts you're seeing in the industry right now. We'll dig into current priorities, challenges, and finally we'll look ahead where things are going, how you're prepared for what's next, and what your future holds. Does that sound good, Bryan? We do that?
All good. I'm with you.
All right. Well, let's start at the top. Going a little deeper, what's your role at the company? You've touched on it. And how does it connect to the bigger vision you're working towards?
Well, I'm the founder and I'm a company of one. So, I'm also the janitor. I'm also I'm also the marketing guy. But the thing is, when I worked with Boys and Girls Club for as long as I did, I enjoyed working with kids. In fact, I'll be the first to tell you, I still miss not seeing my kids every day, high-fiving and stuff. But my club that I was running, the second one, was about an hour from my house. I was missing my son's basketball games. I was getting home late sometimes because we were a rural club. And a lot of times when something happens, somebody doesn't show up as a CEO, you've got to step in and you've got to be the person to do it. So anyway, I did that. And after I left though, I started my own company because, one of the things I live by, and it's on my webpage and stuff like that, is Muhammad Ali. And I'm going to paraphrase, but Muhammad Ali basically said, service is the rent you pay to live on earth. And so, you don't ever get into nonprofit fields to get like super wealthy. I mean, there are some people who make really good money too, but you do it because you know that it's our job. I believe it's our responsibility to leave the world a better place than when we got here, kind of thing. And so, I'm right now helping people from all over actually world. I was going to say country, but all over the world, because I have a couple of international customers as well. Just get their stuff together on finding grants if they need that, if they need board developments. I mean, one of my customers doesn't even, they're like, yeah, we just get the board members on, and then they're so frustrated the board members don't know what they're doing. I was like, well, show me your orientation. And they're like, we don't have one. I was like, well, there's a problem. You got to give them those expectations. Anyway, all that to say, it's a variety of things, because one of the things that I was very lucky with Boys and Girls Club is they train you really well. I mean, they overtrain you. I mean, they give you a lot of training on this, and then, oh, by the way, there's this, and then now there's something. I mean, there's a lot of training that you always get. So I think most Boys and Girls Club employees are very well prepared. And so I'm taking that knowledge and getting it out there to help these people who, like I said earlier, have great hearts and want to help, but they're running a business with their heart and not with their mind. And you've got to, if you're a nonprofit, I always say that a nonprofit, when the phrase nonprofit just means 501c3, it's just a tax designation. You still have to run your business like a business. You can't forget the little things, the stuff you have to file, the how you're going to raise money, any of those things, the training, because if you don't, you're setting yourself up to fail. And then how many people are you helping, or how many dogs are you saving, or how many homeless people are you feeding? Whatever your mission is, you're not going to be there for them anymore if you're not running your business the right way. So that's kind of what I do for them, to try to make them understand everything they need from a business side. But a nonprofit, I mean, we're nonprofits are businesses, but they're a special kind of business. You do have to work. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm, Scrooge kind of thing. You do have to lead with your heart because that's why you get into it, but you still have to work it with your brain. And so I try to help them understand that, because you get so many people who are just so passionate about what they do. I mean, that's where it's important that we make sure that that's great, and I'm with you, and that is the best idea in the world, but you got to do this first or else, because so many people will tell you, well, my mission is, everybody's mission is really good. If you're in a nonprofit, everybody's trying to do something good, again, whether it's building houses like Habitat for Humanity or making a soup kitchen or whatever. That part is very, very important. But like I said, everybody's is. Somebody's saving dogs, somebody's feeding children, somebody's giving, helping abuse victims, that kind of thing. Everybody's mission is good. Everybody's going to just give it to me because I've got a good mission. There's 1,000,001 great missions out there. In fact, if I remember right, it's some crazy number, but like every day, it's like in the United States, just in the United States, there are, I think it's like 16 or 18,000 new nonprofits start every day in the United States. So I mean, you're talking about, that's a lot of people looking for money, looking for volunteers, looking for board members and stuff like that. So you got to make sure your stuff is all together, well organized, well presentable, any of those factors to get people to want to give to you, to get people to want to use your services, to make sure you stay around for a long time, that kind of thing. So that's what I do.
Well, let's go a little further here and say, if I was to go and follow Mr. Partee around for the day, what would our listeners see? Your day-to-day activities.
Day-to-day activities varies, because one of the things that I do now, let me take a step back. It doesn't vary, because I'm going to be writing grants. I'm going to be writing stewardship programs. I'm going to be helping develop their web. I'm going to be doing stuff to enhance nonprofits. In fact, the only day that I try to keep myself pretty open is always going to be on Thursdays. I try to have a day where you can just sit and think without customers calling you. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just to keep your mind clear. Because if you start getting 10 customers, 12 customers, 15 customers, one customer's, I'd be like, oh, wait, we're doing the veteran stuff. I was thinking youth development or something. You know what I mean? So things start to run together. So I'm giving myself a break and step back and look at everything I'm doing. But with all my customers here, the way it works is I wake up, get a cup of coffee. I do try to do a little bit of exercise. My wife will roll her eyes at me if she hears me saying that, but I try, only because taking care of your, and the reason why I threw that in there, because taking care of yourself. I mean, and I'm saying that from my business, but if you're a CEO of a nonprofit or something like that, you got to take, if some of these really great CEOs that I work with just overwork themselves, what's going to happen to the nonprofit kind of thing, right? So I make sure you try to, have a little breakfast and stuff like that. And I do with each of my customers, once a week, I designate an hour for them. So if they want to talk, that's great. And I mean, I assume we're going to talk, but if they can call me up and say, oh, Brian, I've got an early meeting. I'm sorry. That's fine. I don't mind. But I always save that time so we can talk. How we doing? How are we working on this project? Here's how many grants, if I'm doing just grant writing for you, here's how many grants I've written. So I give them the update, because the way I look for it when I'm a nonprofit consultant is I work for you. You can, and I'll tell you, I'm in a different position because I've had 20 years of experience. I will take the time to tell people, well, I wouldn't do it that way, because, and you got to always explain stuff. You never, how do we always feel when we were kids and your parents just go, because I said so. Don't do it that way, because I said so. You want to explain to them why this is I mean, I've been going back and forth with one of my customers, in a good way, not in a bad way, but we'll be write grant. I'm teaching them to write grants. And that one of the things that they'll do is they say, we are doing this in our community. We are doing, and I was like, one of the things when you write grants is you don't write in first person. And they're like, why? And I said, because everybody's we, because the nonprofit that does the dogs and saves dogs, when they write their narrative, they say, we save dogs. And then the people who do another Boys and Girls Club say, we help kids. And the person who does the homeless shelter says, we home people. And you know what I mean? So everybody's we. So you want to, and I explained to them, you want to say your name over and over again. because that way when these people are scoring, that stays in their mind, right? It's just a small thing, but that's what I've always taught. And I mean, I don't want to sound, I'm not a bragging kind of person, but I think last time we talked, when I did the preset, I just had my first million. I mean, I've raised over $20 million in grants, awards, but I had my first $1 million month, just 1 month where I got $1 million for my customers in grant awards. So it works, I guess, it works for me at least. And so I will explain to them though, that's why you want to do it. You don't want to, write a grant first person. You want to write a grant third person. You want to make sure that they understand who you are. And it's always, because a lot of times, in your name, Boys and Girls Club, you're always talking about boys and girls. Habitat for Humanity, you're talking, you know what I mean? It keeps your mind and your awareness of your organization on the minds of the scorers. And so I would explain that to them, and we go over that. We talk about what our next steps are. I mean, I love talking to my customers, and it's really about the hardest part I ever have with it is the time difference, of course, as anybody might imagine. And I mean, you and I think we discussed, we're like an hour off of each other, so nothing tragic. However, I've got a customer who's they work in Ghana. I just got a new lady who does, this is crazy, who does animal shelter in India, because in India it's because there's so many feral dogs, street dogs kind of thing. So anyway, but so getting those time differences are a little different. But besides that, I really enjoy, talking to my customers and trying to help them get better, because as much as I get paid for my customers, and it if I do my job well and I teach them stuff, then that's why they're hiring me, to show them how to do these different things. They should get rid of me after a while. And you want your job security, but you also want to know that the way I feel about it is I enjoy helping other nonprofits be successful and be sustainable, which is, to me, the more important thing. But after that, I mean, the great thing about, I think, working self is being able to do kind of what you want when you want, aside from deadlines, of course. If a grant is due next Friday, I'll start working on it earlier than next Friday, of course. But beyond that, it's when you're self-employed, basically, as a nonprofit consultant, it's kind of like when you feel inspired. Like last night, I was staying up till, gosh, I stayed up till 1:30 because I just had this really great idea. I'm helping somebody write a stewardship plan, because it's really important to tell your donors thank you, right? Because you don't want them to feel like you're their ATM and, oh, hey, Roy, it's a time for the golf thing. Could you help me and do a whole sponsorship? Yeah, great. I'll see you in a year. Well, no, Roy, I mean, you're investing money in us as a nonprofit. We need to tell you thank you. We need to tell you, oh my gosh, because of your donation of $1,000, we were able to feed this many kids, or we were able to save this many dogs, or build this many houses, or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's teaching them those things. In fact, just prior to us getting here, we wrote a grant for $25,000, something small, and the lady who's my contact for the nonprofit, she said, here, and I wrote this letter to thank the foundation, because it's always better coming from her, because she's the president of the organization, right? She wrote the thank you note, and she put in pictures and everything. And I felt so good, because before, they wouldn't even thank. They'd be like, yeah, you're a foundation, just give me money, that's your job, shut up and go home, kind of thing. I mean, they weren't that blatant about it, but you know what I'm saying? They're like, yeah, they gave us money, that's what a foundation does, right? Yeah, but it doesn't hurt so you can get it next year. It doesn't hurt to say thank you.
Yes.
He wrote this really nice letter and had pictures. Their organization works with at-risk girls, kind of thing. So they had pictures of some of the girls doing positive activities. And I said, thank you. This money's going to really go far. It's going to help us do this, this, and this, and this with the girls. And she signed it. I mean, and I felt so good, because I helped her help the world. And my little motto, my mission statement for the nonprofit marketplace is helping you help others. And so I'm glad that, like I said, while I told you earlier that I miss the day-to-day high fives with the kids, and the kids go, hey, Mr. B, they call me Mr. B. Mr. B, hey, and all that. I miss that. I do miss the interaction with the kids. I also feel good to know that I'm helping at-risk girls in the Midwest, or I'm helping food instability in Ghana, or I'm helping people with cancer in Maryland, that kind of thing. That's the part that makes me feel good, that I'm not the cause of their success. I'm helping them find their success that they didn't know that they had
You're
in
creating a
them.
roadmap for them,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, exactly. So but that's my day. And then, like I said, it's as with anybody, I'm sure you do podcasts if you need to on a Saturday or something. Whenever you get the need. When my wife, my wife and my son go see a movie that I don't want to go see, I'll just sit here and write, whether it's writing grants or something So you're kind of always working, but you also have the flexibility. My son actually graduates high school on Friday, so we have friends coming in and stuff like that. I have the flexibility to take Thursday and Friday off. I mean, I'll be around if somebody needs me in an emergency, but we'll go to Noah's graduation and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
really great because I was telling somebody about that, and they were like, "Would you ever go back to the corporate world or the nonprofit world, the working world?" And I said, "I don't think I can because the freedom you get. I mean, I think I feel better about myself. I think my thoughts are a lot more clear because it's not always deadline, 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 kind of thing. And I think I'm more productive for my customers, and it has opened my eyes to because I was in such a niche doing 20 years in Boys and Girls Club. I'm the master of writing grants for youth development stuff, right? I mean, I it's not hard because I know the vernacular. I'm used to doing it. But then I can figure out what the problems are with food instability. I can figure out what the problems are with dog and cat overpopulation. And I can figure out the problems are with cancer and brain tumors or whatever. I can figure that stuff out, but I now have to learn it and I have to write it. So it also keeps me active and engaged
Yes.
because something different and it's exciting. I mean, there's so many things I didn't know about all these different. I mean, yeah, you want to get your dogs and cats spayed and neutered. Yeah, of course you do because you don't want to, but you don't understand how. I mean, I had to get into the deep stuff of dogs getting put to sleep. Then there's a problem of disposal of their body. Then there's a problem of the cost of doing. I mean, there's so many things you don't think about. So in essence, if this organization I'm working for now can help adopt out animals who they don't deserve to die, they're not sick, there's nothing wrong with them, they're just out of space. If there's a way that you can help adopt out dogs, you're helping other problems like bodies in the water basin, where all the things I was talking about. So it's kind of great that they do, for me at least, that they do all these different things because I have to learn them. I mean, I helped one customer, the food instability folks in Ghana. They were providing food for kids in Ghana. The founder was from Ghana when he was a kid. He told me stories about when he was younger. They'd walk around and knock on people's doors and, hey, do you have any food? Because we don't have any food at all, like as an 8-year-old and stuff like that. And so that part was good. But what they do is they give their kids. Usually, a lot of people when you do food instability programs, a lot of it is rice and some stuff that'll fill up your stomach, right? Getting the proteins and all that kind of stuff. It's a little more expensive. They give the kids a healthy meal. They give the kids an education because they do it in conjunction with the school. They give girls an education because what we see in the news and stuff about that, like girls in Africa and stuff, their job is to have the children and that's it. They're not supposed to be smart. Girls get an education. That's good too. And in that area, especially in northern Ghana, there's a very high level of human trafficking, not sex trafficking, slave trafficking,
Yes.
labor trafficking. So we're keeping girls from that. And I was like, guys, you guys are running on this narrative of we're feeding kids, which is great. I mean, who doesn't want to help hungry kids eat? But you're doing all these other things that are so amazing. So that's where I like what I'm doing because it allows me, like I said, in that part, they weren't thinking about any of that at all, that they were keeping kids from getting, put into diamond mines or whatever. They weren't talking about, kids just eating carbs. So they got really fat, but then they burn it all off and they're just hungry again, all those kind of things. So it's really great doing stuff like that. That's, I thoroughly enjoy it.
Perfect. Uh, now, with these trends and data points within your business, how they shape your strategy today, are they nudging you to rethink your growth strategy, or are you just going to continue on with the same basic system that you've been following?
No, I do have to change up a little bit. In fact, there's this, I don't know if have heard of this. There's this program called Sintra, Sintra, and I'm not endorsing anything, but it's what it is it's basically focused AI bots. So I can do one's just marketing and one's just, and I make a big deal of, because my wife is head of marketing for a multi-billion-dollar bank. And I always brag that I've gotten every customer I've gotten. I have not spent a dime on marketing. Well, I said, okay, what do I need to do to really grow? I asked this to my AI bots. My marketing AI bot said, that's nothing to be proud of that you're not marketing and getting, I mean, they like, shoot, my bot, like, seriously,
You're getting a finger waggle from an
seriously,
bot.
my bot chewed me out. So my marketing bot chewed me out. My social media bot chewed me out. One of them said I'm thinking too small. So they're like, oh, you want to be real about this? You're not making as big an impact in the. I mean, I'm making an impact to the world. I get that. It's kind of that whole starfish, million starfish on the beach, and I throw one in at a time, and everybody's like, you're not going to make a difference. And I was like, to that starfish, I did. So I am making a difference to my organization. But they're like, my boss chewed me out, and they're like, if you want to make the impact, you have way more room for capacity, and you're just being comfortable. So all that to say is I am working on more direct marketing. I'm planning more strategies on what I can do and to help them as well. Because with the way things are in the United States right now with Trump as president, and I'm not getting political. I don't mean anything like that. I mean, just with closing down different departments. I mean, I've written grants to the Department of Education, which the Department of Education is now run by a pro wrestling wife, a woman, Linda McMahon. And I'm a
Yeah.
big wrestling fan. That's how I know that. Um, but it's so those grants are probably not going to be as available. So what we might need to do now with my customers, when you talk about strategy and data points, I probably need to start working with them on building your donor base and working really hard on your stewardship and letting people know that we're doing all these great things for our nonprofit, whatever your nonprofit is, and we're saving this many dogs and feeding this many kids and all that stuff, and let them know, and not contact them every 5 minutes and say, oh my gosh, I need some more money. Oh my gosh, I need some more money. Oh my gosh, I need some more money, because you invested in our nonprofit. And, it's just crafting, it's word crafting. Because you invested in our nonprofit, we're able to, 30 dogs did not get put to sleep who just would have been put to sleep. Healthy dog, they got adopted out and they have happy, forever homes and all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that, I have to start telling my customers, because while we're in this climate, and, in the United States, we're leaning borderlining on being a recession, not recession, all that different stuff. It's being ready for that, because again, how many people rely on your services now, and so that means how many people will be screwed in 8 months if there's a recession, if you're not planning for it, and if they don't know I exist. Now, I will tell you this, Roy, I'm getting more people calling me lately. I mean, because my grant, I mean, a lot of grant writers you'll see, there'll be like, yeah, I've written and been awarded, $150,000 in grants, which is a great number. It means you know how to do it. Like I said, 20 million stands out quite a bit. So when I say I've done 20 million, I get people calling me, and I'm like, we want to do grants, and there's people they think that's going to be the magic bullet right now, but I'm like, foundations are going to, if there's a recession, foundations are going to have less money to give away, so you got to plan ahead. So to answer your question, I think one of my goals is to try to make sure, and we get our people prepared for the worst. I mean, I'm not a pessimist I'm a super optimist as a matter of fact, but it's being prepared based on trends that you see governmentally. That's not being pessimistic, in my opinion. That's being on top of it for your customers.
So aside from the bullying bots, let's flip into the positive. What's actually working really well for you right now? And are there any surprising wins or solid bets that's paid off for you? Because I heard you say you just hit 1 million, so
Yes, yes.
that's a pretty solid bet that paid off.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that was those were grant awards, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things about where that goes, before I'll tell you about that real fast. That's a series of trusting your grant writer, because I had a customer get rid of me because they hired me in like February, and we didn't have $2 million worth of grants by March. I was like, that's not the way it works. Grants are the long game. So I got to compliment my customers. I tell them up front, I was like, grants are the long game. So, we'll get stuff in, but you got to get it in. You don't know, some of these boards. I mean, I'm writing grants. I'm writing a grant today. In fact, when we're done, I'm finishing off a grant for my brain tumor foundation group, um, that the board doesn't meet until September 1st. So it's going to be done. It's going to be in,
Yep.
but you're not going to, and it's a well-written grant. So far, it's a well-written grant. But they're not going to get their money if the board votes on it September 1st. Then they send the award letters. Then they send you the money. I mean, they're not going to actually see that money till November. So I'm glad that my customers trusted me enough for me to say, uh, it's coming. Give it a chance. Yes, we probably won't have a lot of successes, 1, 2, or 3, for 2 or 3 months, because you got to get your name out there and stuff like that. But they trusted me and got me in. So that was a good thing. So that was a positive. A positive that I'm going to keep doing, though. If you ever saw the movie Jerry Maguire,
Mhm.
one of the things when Tom Cruise left the agency, and that's what they got to the story at the end, less customers with much more focus. I think one of the things that works for me is being able to talk to my customers and not at them, to be available for them. Um, and I think the personal account of things, telling them whether I'm also, by the way, I'm not throwing this in like for a commercial for any customer to get more customers or anything, but I'm also a certified coach. I mean, I've had to sit down with my clients and say, hey, my opinion, your board chair is right. You're not, having those difficult conversations and being very honest, not being condemning. It's your fault. It's your fault. Not like that, but making sure that they understand, here's my way of thinking and how they do that. But anyway, being very open and honest and very attentive to them, that's been working a lot, because I get people who, I mean, I could take, despite being yelled at by my bots, I could probably take 10 to 12 more, but I don't know if I want to do 10 to 12 more at the expense of not doing the people who've been with me for a long time really, really well. Like
Yeah, it's
really, really well.
the
Yeah.
quality and the
Yeah.
quality versus the quantity versus the quality aspect. Yeah.
That's my big focus right now. But that's been working a lot. I will add, though, I'm going to I want to do a little bit more. I want to start getting a little bit into um, video lessons, because there's some things I could teach pretty easily, uh, where I could just, I don't know, basically put it on a video. And here's how you here's a great example. Every nonprofit wants to get the Walmart Spark grant. That's the one that the local stores give out, right? But they change over. They now have a new partner with them who verifies your eligibility, called Deed. And it's a long process. It's a pain, because you have to go from Walmart to Deed, and then Deed verifies that you're a nonprofit through PayPal. So then you go to PayPal, then PayPal confirms you and goes back to Deed. Then you have to claim on Deed. Then from Deed, you go back to Walmart, and then you apply. But then with Walmart, you only get 550, 600 characters. Characters, not words, characters, to tell a manager at your local Walmart, here's what we're doing and how we're saving the world, in 500, 600 characters. And it's very hard to do it. I could do that on a video and make it out there, make it available, just create a little video library, a little 5-minute, 10-minute class with some screenshots of, here's where you go, here's where you go, here's where you go, here's what you do, here's some tips, secret tips that you need to talk to this guy or do this, things like that. So I'd like to add little bit more video repertoire, because, again, I told you about my son graduating on Friday, having an 18-year-old son. I know how the younger generation are definitely captivated by video,
Oh, totally. Yes.
whether it's a 1-minute video or a 20-minute video that's a lesson. So I got to do a little bit more than that, because I do a lot of writing, and then I do the personal connection, like I said. And we would do something like, if you were one of my customers, we'd set up a Zoom call or something like that, Google Meet, and we'd start talking, and I'd say, here's what I could do for you. What do you think? And I'd send a contract, and if you want to sign it, wonderful. Anyway, all that to say is, that's kind of how I do it. And so I want to get a little more, I guess, passive income-ish as well, where I could get a little bonus money on the side on easier things that I've done a bunch of. So yeah, but besides that, I enjoy what I'm doing. I like helping people. And I think my relationship with all my customers is like top notch. Like I know their kids' names and their birthdays and stuff like that. And it's like you're their friends that I happen to be helping and they happen to be paying me, kind of thing. And I think that makes a great relationship because it helps me get invested in their nonprofit. I don't want them to think that once our call ends, yeah, I don't care about the brain tumor stuff. I'll care about it again next week when my call is. I want them to know that, wow, this is really a devastating disease, and if the world didn't have you guys, a lot of people would be, up the creek, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, investing the time with your clients on a personal level, I mean, you can't go wrong with that because that proves that you're a human, you
Yes.
know, and you care. So right now, I'm going to give you the opportunity, Brian. It's magic wand time.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could instantly solve just one major issue in your business just by making it disappear, what would it be?
Goodness. Um,
Your biggest headache.
my personal biggest headache. I Gosh, that's such a hard one because I don't have a particular headache. Where I'd like to go, can I modify this
Oh,
question a little bit?
absolutely.
If my magic wand would be to, before people, to educate people going into the nonprofit field before they start their nonprofit about what they're doing. Because when we talked the last time, and for everybody out there, we talked forever. We had a long conversation. One of the things was, people go into, and I mentioned this when we talked last time, was it people go into their going to start a nonprofit, and what's your financial plan? What's your resource development plan? I'm gonna write the Bill Gates Foundation. No, no, that's not a plan because it's competitive. Like we said, grants take a long time. Bill Gates is solving big world problems, not local food issues. I mean, not saying it's not less important. That's just where his focus is, on his foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. In fact, here I'll tell you a funny story because it makes for good broadcast here. And I told you this the last time, but I'll tell everybody else out there. I had a lady who was wanted to buy a hotel, 100 rooms, for women, a women's shelter, and she was going to have uh, women who are victims of domestic violence, like trying to escape, trying to get out, women who were getting out of incarceration, who just got out of jail, or women who are out of rehabilitation for doing drugs. And first of all, I told her, that's a tough group to mix, but given that population, you'd need a whole lot of security, the rooms, the utilities. I would estimate $125,000 a month at least for a 100-room, hotel. Where are you going to go? Where are you getting this money from? And she goes, looks and looks at me, because we were in the camera. She looks like right at the camera. Bake sales. And I was like, what? Bake sales. And I was like, I don't know if Nabisco can bake enough cookies for bake sale. The profit margin is small, and that's a lot. And that's, sorry about that. And that's a lot of. And I was like, that I don't know if that's that's a good plan. We need a bigger plan. But that's when I'm talking about magic wanding. It would be like, I'd like to magic wand her and say, before you have this great idea, which is a great idea. I mean, domestic violence, whenever you get out, if people who get out of jail, it's hard to get a job, hard to find a place to live. Same with people who've been on drugs. I get it. So that's your heart, but it's not feasible to pull $1 million a month in bake sales. And so those are the people that I want to tap and let understand that, so they can go into it more prepared, so they become more successful. So we get to a point where, usually when you write grants, you say, the phrase is grant ready. Most cases it's 3 years is grant ready. You show numbers, good numbers. We saved this many, we helped this many, we raised this much, whatever your mission is, you're doing a lot of that. And so usually it's about 3 years. Now, I'm not saying you can't get a grant before that, but it's a whole lot easier if you've been in business 3 years with good numbers and stuff like that. So all that to say, um, is the you know I'd like them to come in, because when we get to year 3, then we know we can really start writing. You know, they start having real board meetings. I mean, I've got people who give me financials who've given me for grants, because grants always say you got to upload your financials, and they take a picture of their account and send me a JPEG. And I was like, they're looking for like a P&L, and they're like, what's a P&L? So again, these are people who are going in with their heart, not with their brain. So I would like to magic wand them and get a combination of heart and brain, because again, you don't have a nonprofit without heart, but you also know you don't have a business without brain. So you got to get those two things. And I'd go even a little pair, heart's a little higher than brain. Brain's important. I'm not talking about a big gap, you know, something like that, to where they're prepared to do the good work of the world for what their nonprofit will be. That's my magic wand.
That's a good, I like that. That's like coming to you pre-approved.
Right. That's being ready. Being ready.
That's right.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Bryan. I really appreciate how open, thoughtful, and of course, honest. You're always honest with everything that comes from you. I appreciate that. Once I finish the series, I'll be pulling together a highlight reel of key takeaways from all our guests, and I'll be sure to send one your way. So you have a fantastic day, Bryan. Great talking to you.
Have a good day. Talk to you later.